podcast of The Jason Gregor Show from TSN 1260. Powered by Sky Residences. Live up, play down in the heart of Ice District. Stylish 1- and 2-bedroom homes starting from $320,000. See it for yourself at liveskycondos.com.
Just after 5 o'clock, and I'm in Sports Leader TSN 1260. Jason Gregor, Jason Strutta, Connor Halley with you. Lovely Monday. There's a word we won't mention on the show until October, but Josh Clausen mentioned it earlier today. So, well, I'm not even lying. I saw him in the parking lot, and I almost took a hard left. I was so disappointed that he used that word, but obviously I chose not to. Unlike Serena, I controlled my emotions when I was upset. Decided to take ownership of my actions. I'll blame other people for it. Not saying I'm a better person, but maybe I am. Let's get to the Shock Report now, brought to you by the Building Trades of Alberta. The BTA Charitable Foundation has raised over $6.5 million to help Albertans. To apply for funding or to learn more about who the Building Trades of Alberta Foundation helps, visit bta.ca. It's a fantastic job what they do, help out a lot of Albertans, and it could be you. It's great. Ryan Rishaug from TSN will join us. He is in Humboldt as they get set for Wednesday's broadcast, which we'll be airing right here on TSN 1260. Shogger, welcome back to the show. On top of the game on Wednesday, you'll also be airing a special feature tomorrow. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. We spent some time over the summer with Braden Camrud and Derek Patter. So Braden Camrud and Derek Patter are the two players who were on the bus, who are going to be in the Broncos lineup again to start the year this year. There's only two of them. There's one other player who may return, Tyler Smith, who's actually from out from that area. He's pushing to be back for later on this season, but for right now, it's Braden Camrud and Derek Patter. So we spent some time with them. We talked to them about the accident. We talked to them about their training. We were with them while they were doing some of their training, and it's just, pretty unreal what these guys have been through, and to have followed along with them through this process as they prepare themselves mentally and physically to get back out on the ice. It doesn't even need to be said, just the extent of the emotion that these young men have had to endure, and the strength that they're showing in rejoining this team and getting back on the ice. So pretty powerful stuff, and that's going to run on SportsCenter tomorrow. It's one of our TSN originals, and super proud of it. And these are pretty amazing kids.
Shogger, you're in Humboldt now, right?
Yeah, you bet.
So, what's the feeling? You've been there, from the beginning, in and out, and you know the vibe of that. Say, what is the sense you get of the community as they head towards what I'm assuming will be a pretty important evening on Wednesday?
Yeah, well, it just kind of depends on which angle you look at it from, Struddy, right? Like you've got, let's start with the families first and foremost. And there were a number that were from the area who lost loved ones, not just players, but, staff as well. This is going to be a really hard week for them. And I've talked, on the phone with a lot of these families. We're also working on a documentary that's going to run later this year, kind of an all-encompassing documentary about the rebuilding of the Humboldt Broncos and telling the story of the team that Darcy Hogan built. I've talked to a lot of these families, and this is going to be a really hard week. Like, they know it has to happen, but you got to be careful about throwing around the word healing. Like the first game of the regular season, it's not healing for the families that lost loved ones. It's maybe for the community it is, and that's okay. And for those who were so worried and paid such close attention to maybe tune in and watch that game and see the Broncos up and running again, maybe that will be healing for people, and that's okay. But for the families who lost loved ones, it's just another difficult step in dealing with this. And for the community of Humboldt, it's trying to return to some sense of normalcy. And the Broncos are such an integral part of this community that to have had the team not playing this year would have inhibited their ability as a community to move on and to get past this. So, it's one thing for the families. It's another thing for the community. Everybody just agrees this is really hard, but it has to happen. And they're ready. They cut their roster down and they're ready to go.
Ryan Rishaug from TSN joins us. So a feature coming up tomorrow, and then the game on Wednesday. You can listen to it right here on TSN 1260. Edmonton Oilers signed Alex Chiasson to a PTO today. He actually had more penalty-killing minutes last year than Scotty Upshall. Do you think he is a better fit than Upshall in the role that they're looking for?
I don't know. That's actually a good question. What I am intrigued by is the number of bodies that they have that are going to be smashing around in camp, kind of chasing after the same jobs. And I know it's supposed to be that way, but my point is they keep adding guys that we view are going to try out for a certain position on this team, and that's the Upshalls, and that's the spot that Jujar Kara is going to want, and they've got some guys internally. They're creating a lot of competition in their bottom six forwards, are they not? Even on their fourth line, they seem to be creating competition with guys that have NHL experience. So 61 games played for the Washington Capitals last season for a guy that's, 27 years old? Interesting. This is an interesting one, and I'm not sure how to peg this guy's chances of coming in and moving the dial, but I mean, he's a legit NHL player when you look at his stats line over the last 4 or 5 years here. So very interesting.
Yeah, it is really interesting. So who do you think this puts pressure under? Which bottom six player or the 13th forward, I guess?
Well, I mean, he's a right winger, shoots right, probably a fourth liner. I think he plays the game with a certain amount of sandpaper as well. You look at Zach Kassian's situation and the cap hit that Kassian is, and maybe he puts a little bit of pressure on, not taking his spot in the lineup, but just if they have somebody who can do what Zach does at a little bit less money, then maybe that facilitates a deal. You look at the guys I mentioned. I mean, you look at Upshall, Jujar Kara, Drake Kajula. These are all players that are going to be scrapping and clawing for those, third line, fourth line minutes, special teams roles, carving out a role. In answering the question, what do you do well? Those guys are all going to try and answer that with, I can penalty kill. I can move up the lineup if you need me to. I can. This guy had 12 goals in the NHL, 2 seasons ago. So he's going to be one of those, I can do that, guys. And it'll be interesting to see if he makes a case for himself.
Joined by Ryan Rishaug from TSN, talking all things hockey related. Right now we're focused on the Oilers. It's a last day at training camp. You're the GM. You have to choose between Upshall and Chiasson. Let's say they both just do well. Like no one's having a hat trick, but and I'll just set it out for you. One is older. One is younger. How do you approach the two players as far as who gets that, sign that paper and sit down beside the big guy?
Well, listen, I mean, you know what, Struds? I think when you come in on a PTO, you got to do something. You have to show something. And that, there was a reason you didn't land an actual contract over the off season, right? There's a reason for that because there's questions about what you have left in the tank. There's questions about what your abilities are. So, making that call right now, we're doing it based on the history of the players.
Yes. Yep.
Based on the history of the players, Chiasson is definitely younger. I can't speak off. I don't know how he moves. I'm trying to picture him and think about the way he plays. I don't recall if he's a great skater or not. I would definitely want, probably the better skater. If it comes down to a tie, you want to put guys in the lineup that can move. If you make me choose right now, I would probably say Chiasson's got less miles on him and, played for the Washington Capitals last season. Maybe there's a slight edge there, but it took, and I think he spent more time fishing for that actual NHL deal, which is why we're seeing a late PTO. So maybe that speaks to, the caliber. He felt like there was probably a deal coming. So it matters what they do in the exhibition season more than anything they've done. They need to come in on PTOs and show. So whoever outplays the other one, in my mind, gets the position. But between the two players, I'd probably take Chiasson at this point.
Ryan Rishaug from TSN joins us. Jason Garrison might be the one who beats both of them out because if Darnell Nurse doesn't have a contract by the end of training camp and Andre Sekera's not there, they're probably going to have to sign the veteran.
What's going on? What is happening? This is dragging on, is it not?
Yeah, it doesn't make much sense to me. There's no real comparables from Nurse's camp. Brandon Montour just signed this summer. So nobody can want to say percentage of cap anything. He signed for $3.38 million, and there's nothing that Nurse has in his numbers that suggests he's significantly more valuable than that. Then they're on the opposite end at the bottom. There's nothing that the Oilers can use as comparables to say he deserves less than 3. So 3 to 3.3 is easily in the ballpark. So now if Nurse's camp is like, no, we want a long-term deal, well, the Oilers have kind of painted themselves into into a corner where they can't afford that right now. And if you're Nurse's camp, he hasn't done enough to probably earn the big money that he would ask for in a long-term deal anyway. So unless he was willing to sign a long-term deal for less than Noah Hannafin-like numbers, I'm just not sure. Like it doesn't make any rational sense.
You know what? When the number is maybe not in question, then maybe it's an issue of term. And maybe that's what they're up against right now. Like, when he is eligible for arbitration is relevant. If I were Darnell Nurse's agents, and would he be eligible for arbitration after next season? Sorry if I'm putting you guys on the spot.
No. If he signed a 1-year deal, he would be eligible for arbitration.
So if you're Darnell Nurse's agent, and you're saying, okay, you're not willing to give him a long-term deal right now, you're not willing to pony up for him like you did for everybody else, then we want a 1-year deal. And we'll take you to arbitration next year after Darnell plays huge minutes on your blue line. We're going to bet on the player with a 1-year deal instead of taking a 2-year deal where he has to take a lower salary for back-to-back years instead of, so the arbitration situation and the term of the deal, if the money seems simple, that might be where the problem lies.
Just changing gears a little bit as we're joined by Ryan Rishaug from TSN. Shogger, today the Vegas go out and trade for Match Pacioretty, former captain of the Canadiens, then sign him to a $7 million deal for 4 years. Do you think that this could mean they're probably out of the discussion for Erik Karlsson?
Well, I would kind of think so. I mean, I don't know how much of that big game stuff you can do in one off season. That's a pretty big commitment. Now, at the same time, they had some pretty big pieces leave the organization as well, some tickets, but they were active too. So, yeah, I think it probably signals that they're not necessarily going to be. And more than anything, never mind the money. I think it's the assets. Like George McPhee, while they surprised everybody and almost won a Stanley Cup, I think he's still very, very cognizant of the fact that they're an expansion team, and that hey, who knows what's going to happen this year? Does he hope they're still in a Stanley Cup window and they can fight for a playoff spot? And who knows? Yeah, absolutely. But I think he still feels a sense of responsibility to the owners and to the original plan. Just because they blew the doors off last year doesn't mean that you crump up the original plan, the 3-year plan, and throw it away. So they gave up a lot of assets for this player and a lot of futures. And I can't imagine they'd be willing to give up a similar load of futures for Erik Karlsson as well. They do have to safeguard their future at some point.
Oh, yeah, without question. Shogger, enjoy it, which will be, I'm sure, emotional next few days in Humboldt. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good, guys.
Ryan Rishaug from TSN. And you can watch that broadcast on TSN. You can listen to the game right here on TSN 1260 on Wednesday night. That was the Rishaug Report, brought to you by the Building Trades of Alberta. Visit bta.ca and find out about the BTA's charitable foundation. It's raised over $6.5 million. You can apply for funding. The Building Trades of Alberta. We'll take callers 3 and 4 for Popeye's Players Challenge at 444-1260 when we return on the Gregor Show.
This is a podcast of the Jason Gregor Show from TSN 1260, powered by Sky Residences. Live up, play down in the heart of Ice District. Stylish 1- and 2-bedroom homes starting from $320,000. See it for yourself at liveskycondos.com.
5:31. Reminder: there is NFL football, so your next chance to win 7:15 tomorrow morning with Lieutenant Eric and Dustin Nielsen. Okay. So tune in tomorrow, 7:15. Let's get now to Popeye's Players Challenge. 8-piece bonafide family meals up for grabs. Scrumptious chicken, only at Louisiana Chicken. 3 locations, 1 in Sherwood Park, 2 in Edmonton. As we get to Jamie. All right, Jamie, tonight the second game has Brandon Cooks versus Amari Cooper, receiving yards. Who are you taking?
Let's go Brandon Cook.
Brandon Cooks. All right. Good luck, my man. Andrew, that means you are getting Amari Cooper, who many of the prognosticators are predicting a bounce-back season for him. So we'll see.
Sounds great. Thank you, Jason.
All right. Enjoy it. Very polite. I like it.
They were both really polite. Just, I hope it works out. Like, they're really nice guys.
Mm-hmm.
Can't say, usually I have one I kind of lean towards, so I want to win, but this one was pretty even. Cheer for both of them. Why not?
Now, we haven't talked about it a whole bunch. It in the first hour, but the Eskimo Stampeder game on Saturday, 90 total points in that game, was back and forth, lots of big plays, lots of interceptions in the game, 4 total, 3 by Levi Mitchell, 1 by Mike Riley. Levi Mitchell had touchdown passes, and Riley had 3 touchdown passes. He also rushed in for 3 touchdowns. High energy game. I know defensive people maybe didn't love it, but that's a fun game to watch. And it literally came right down to the final play. Had the Stamp scored, of course, I think green and gold fans would be livid, but they didn't. They knock it down. They win that game, and there was lots of big individual performances on both sides of the ball. What was your biggest takeaway from that game?
Oh, it was a fun game to watch. It was amazing to see the guys come out. And, I touched on a little bit, but when right after the game on Labor Day, Mike Riley afterwards, and I'm going to paraphrase, but he said, we find a way to win, and it's not good enough. I think he said he was pissed off, if I remember correctly. And he came out and he was the best player on the field. There's no doubt about it. He was doing a lot of things right. He was going for it. He was snapping that ball around. His receivers made plays, some nice catches. The defense did what they had to do at times. But for me, the biggest thing is when your best player steps up and says, we're just not going to lose this game. That we're just going to find a way to win it. And Mike Riley can do that. And you saw a lot of ex-players on Twitter saying that he's the best player in the league right now. And I think that's clear. And the way he can just take over games and just will victory is what the Edmonton Eskimos need. And they need that for these next 6 games and to hope to try to be here for the Grey Cup coming up in a couple months. But for me, that is the lesson that you need to have. You need to have that guy get up to that level. And I think after that, everything kind of falls into place.
Hey, Gregor, you're nuts. The Eskimos defense is pathetic. 42 points and really lucky in the last play. Get rid of Benavides, please. Yeah, but this is the same defense that shut down Calgary and gave him nothing on Monday. Right? This was a game where it was basically a heavyweight bout. Both offenses are going back and forth, and Bo Levi Mitchell and Mike Riley, who most people agree are the 2 best quarterbacks in the CFL, were going throw for throw.
Yeah.
It was highly entertaining. And yeah, sure, you don't want to give up 42 points, but you didn't. You won the game. And the last week, your defense played solid and you lost. So to me, I'd actually thought the defense for up until this game had actually been progressively getting better every week. And they had a tough week. Now they also created enough turnovers to help win the game. So I know people. It's always it seems that nowadays after a bad game, fire the coach is the new thing. Fire the coach. If the Oilers are off to a bad start, fire the coach. Jason Moss, fire Jason Moss. Right? Like it's an easy thing to say. So who are you replacing him with? You're going to fire Benavides right now. Who are you replacing him with?
Yeah, it's mid-season. I think it's difficult, and Connor, you can weigh on this, but mid-season to fire a coordinator on one side of the ball or the other, you're a team that's built or that has belief in itself that it is a Grey Cup contender, and all of a sudden now you move out the defensive coach or any coach at that point, it'd be pretty hard to rebound from that, would it not, Connor?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the guy who's implemented all these systems, what things change. Calgary Stampeders gave up more points. Do they look to fire their coaching staff? Does Devon Clay have to look for a new job now? A guy who some people think could be a next head coach in this league? No, it's one game. The Eskimos won the game, and it's against one of the best quarterbacks in the CFL. That was an absolute shootout. The entertainment was great. I don't think you need to be talking about firing any coaches when both teams are atop the Western Conference.
Now, do you think if you're Stampeders, you should be a little bit worried? Maybe if you lose another receiver, they could be really on a hot seat here.
Well, I know the guy that came in first game had 170 yards. So I remember many GMs have told me, and it's not necessarily a knock on the position, but having good international receivers, that's probably the easiest thing to find. There's a lot of them. Yes, there's a lot of them. You're about route running. It's very different for a defensive back where now all of a sudden you have to adjust to an extra guy on the field, and it's a wider field, and it's different angles on how to cover. They say that receivers are not necessarily a dime a dozen, but if you have a good quarterback, you get a guy that just knows the basics. Okay, this is the route we want to run. Here we go. They'll find guys to get open. So I don't think Calgary's at that point yet where if they lost, sure, it would be damaging, no question, Struds, but you found, like, look at the New England Patriots. For years, They didn't have a great receiving core. They have guys here and there, sure, and then they had Randy Moss for the 1 year, but there's a lot of times they didn't have massive, big household names of, oh my goodness, these guys are awesome, right? Eggleton comes in and this is basically his first game. He was their leading receiver, 7 catches, 153 yards, right? DeVaris Daniels, he had over 100 yards. Durant had 80 yards. So
didn't Darrell Walker have like 200 yards in his first CFL game? He had a couple of huge games. I mean, you're just running the same routes. The route trees don't change a whole lot.
Yeah, like you can have, and as long as you have guys who can catch the ball, right, consistently. So you can have a guy that rotates around. Like I said, at Bryant Mitchell, what did I say before? I felt like he'd be their second leading receiver coming in. I'm kind of surprised he hasn't played more. So he comes in, makes some big plays for the Eskimos. Duke Williams is obviously their go-to guy, and you hope that his injury to his hand, kind of the bye week, comes at a perfect time for him. Perfect time, no question. Obviously, he can play through it, but you'll need that. I think Calgary, more so for them, Struddy, is their secondary, right? Losing Cianta Evans, that was a massive blow. And I think that's where, just like the Eskimos early in the year when they lost their 2 corners, I think that's a bigger blow to a team than losing a receiver.
Harder to find those guys?
Oh.
To learn the schemes or what?
You talk to so many players. I think the hardest position coming out of U.S. college or even out of the NFL to come and play in the CFL is to play corner or halfback.
Why is that? Because the field's bigger and your angles are different?
Yes, without question, right? And then you throw in, especially the halfback position, now you throw in, suddenly you're going up against guys who are running, getting a running start.
Yeah.
Right, and you haven't played that forever. So it's a big challenge for a lot of them.
Right.
And just having the extra guy. But most scouts I've talked to around CFL, they say that's the hardest one. That's why when you can find a good cover halfback in the CFL, like a Grimes or other guys, they're worth their weight in gold because they're just extremely hard to find.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they shake it up. Duke Williams, that guy is just so big and so strong. He was just running free the other night against that group. And has there been an update on his hand or no?
No, nothing yet. Because it's a whole bye week. Which, hey, to me, if I'm running a team, I would be sure on the Monday after a weekend game like that, I would have some people available to the media. That would just be me. There's a few guys that are around, but that would just be me.
It looked like he just jammed it a little bit. When he was falling, he caught that ball and he kind of put it down to brace himself. I mean, what is he, 225 pounds, however big? That's a lot of weight on there to jam it. It looked like he just, we've all done that before playing football for buddies. It looked like he kind of jammed it. So I think that's where they're at with that. And he could, hopefully, 2 weeks gives him a little break without games to freshen that hand up.
Hey, guys, Calgary had 7 turnovers, and they almost won. Is that good for the CFL? From Husey. Well, here's the thing. So when the end of that game, do you look and say 90 points and 900 passing yards, or do you just look at turnovers? It's going to depend on how you look at it. If you want perfect sports, then yes, that won't be for the perfect fan. But you want entertainment. Fans want to be entertained. 90% of football fans are not educated enough on the intricacies of the game. That's not a knock. Most would agree. They just go there to be entertained. And that's what it's for. And you don't want every game like that. The Monday game was low scoring. It was still entertaining because it was close, right? So you had 2 games vastly different in how they were on the scoreboard and everything else. Different ways to be entertained. So to me, I thought both games were highly entertaining for different reasons.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I think one of the things I like about the CFL is you have these big games with just points being flying around all over the place, and I love it. I love to see that happening and where it put all together. I don't know. For me, that's what I just, in my mind, the image I have of CFL is it's more run and gun and open. Connor, is that different from what I see in the NFL, or is it a fair assessment?
I would say it's fair. I wouldn't disagree with you too much on that one.
Yeah, because that's what I see. I see a league that I just like seeing it open and guys going for it, and I don't know. That's what I think the CFL is compared to the NFL. Although the NFL now is more passing, obviously, but in my mind, that's the image I have of the CFL. I've always had of the CFL.
Lots more text flying in at 10, 12, 60. I'm with Gregor. I thought that was the most entertaining game I've been to for a while. Yeah, I was frustrated when the Eskimos almost gave it up, but almost isn't giving it up. I'd much rather have that than a boring game with punts and punts and punts. I'll take big plays, even if it's nerve-wracking, all day. That one comes from Dan in our Jiffy Lube inbox. You can always email us, Gregor, at tsn1260.ca. Hey, guys, I don't watch a lot of football, but that game was highly entertaining. Exactly. I think those are the games that would be like, you know what? Maybe I'll watch 50 minutes of the next game. That's what sports ultimately is about. You have your diehard fans. You're going to watch it. How many of you for the last, how many years have watched every football game if you're an Eskimo fan? Even when they were terrible in 06 and 7, 8, 9, you watched. And how many Oilers fans for the last decade, going into the year when you knew your team was crap, you still watched? Now, maybe by the end of the year, you only watched a period or two, but you still did it. Those diehard fans, you're always there. What sports is always challenged to do is try to get new fans out. And you know how you get new fans to your sport, like the CFL? Is games like that. Now all of a sudden the person, hey, you know what? I'll watch Mike Riley. Might watch 50 minutes of his next game. Geez, Bo Levi Mitchell really kind of like that. I threw the ball. Maybe if they're on TSN, a Calgary game, I might watch it for 10 minutes. And that's what you're always striving for. When you start wanting such perfection in your game, I think it's the ultimate diehards who want that. But that's not, 90% of fans don't want that. Fans want to be entertained. I've never met a fan base like, you know what? We won and it was too entertaining. We made too many mistakes. Geez, we won the Stanley Cup. Oh, but we had too many turnovers. No.
But that's how coaches think.
I don't care what coaches think.
But they're ultimately, their goal is to make sure they have, you know, they do want to have the perfect game. They'd rather go through with no turnovers in any sport.
Sure, but it's the dumbest mindset ever. Because you know what? There's no such thing as a perfect game. So quit striving for it and just say, you know what? I want our guys to compete and play hard and understand that mistakes are part of pro sports. They always will be. And Jason Moss wasn't upset after that game.
No, but he won. And if they didn't win, it's different. I think it's easier on the winning side to have that perspective. When you're on the losing side, it's a little bit... I mean, you're always...
So what if you play great and you lose 6-3? Are you happy because you lost 6-3? No, you're still disappointed.
You are, but I think as a coach, you're always striving for your team to be perfect. And you want to make sure you take any, potential errors out of the game. Now, some of these, they're not all things that you can plan for, but in any sport, you're trying to remove those errors and those possible, whatever the case may be, turnovers or misplays or misreads. You're trying to eliminate that because you're trying to give your team the best chance to win. And you can call that structure, you can call it system, whatever you want, but especially defensively and defending, that's how it is. That's just reality. And I think the coaches, that's what they strive for. Get out of the way offensively, maybe not so much for football, but for other sports. But the rest of the time, there's got to be some structure, and that's how you get away from it.
5:44, quick break. We'll come back, wrap things up on Edmonton Sports Leader TSN 1260.
You've been listening to a podcast of The Jason Gregor Show from TSN 1260. Powered by Sky Residences. Live up, play down in the heart of Ice District. Stylish 1- and 2-bedroom homes starting from $320,000. See it for yourself at liveskycondos.com.
Everybody was ripping on Sam Darnold because his first NFL pass went for a pick six. Well, so did Brett Favre's, but here's the thing. Since then, now the Jets have tied the game. It's 7-7. Meanwhile, the offense of the Detroit Lions, Matt Stafford, is 0 for 4, and they have negative rushing yards. They have negative offense. So while everybody was mocking the Jets, hey, let's pump the brakes here. And the first quarter is almost over. But hey, guess what, Struddy? They're playing good defense, so you'll be happy. There's no offense there. There's no offense. Negative passing yards, but negative running yards.
Give them a chance. The defense, as usual, just holding people in it.
Yeah.
Not a good sign when your defense has more positive yardage than the offense. That's a tough start.
Yeah, they are -2 overall because Riddick carried the ball once for 5 yards, and LeGarrette Blount carried it once for -7. How do you lose -7 as a running back? My goodness, that's a brutal carry.
Not ideal.
So, meanwhile, the Jets, Sam Darnold is 6 for 9 for 50 yards, obviously the one interception. And they have, by the way, Powell has 35 yards rushing, Crowell has 28 and a touchdown, and Darnold actually has 1 carry for 6 yards. So, Jets actually dominating on the offense, but it's a 7-7 game after giving up a pick 6 on the first play of the game. Coming up tomorrow, little rookie action in town. Oilers taking on Nate and Grant McEwen. We will have more on the Darnell Nurse negotiations. Discuss that. We even have one of the participants of that negotiations on the show. On behalf of Jason Strudwick, Connor Halley, I'm Jason Gregor. Have yourselves a wonderful Monday Eve. Why do I keep thinking it's Tuesday? I wish it was Tuesday. It's only Monday. NFL action coming up next right here on TSN 1260. We're up.